Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. Have you ever had those conversations or seen those chats where somebody casually just mentions something like it means nothing but it completely confuses you? Something like, oh, in order to do this, just go and inherit from this actor and then it will work for you. Well, what does that mean? What's an inheritance? Oh, if you follow object-oriented programming, you should build it this way. Oh, you should follow event-driven programming because it's a great way and it's more efficient. What does all of this mean? So what we're going to do is break down little segments of this thing that sounds really complicated, and we're going to make it really easy to understand, because half the time it is. It's just a big word that means something really easy. So in today's tutorial, we're going to break down what is inheritance in Unreal and in general programming. So let's get started. So we're actually going to start this in a drawing document because one, I think it'll be funny and I need to keep up my drawing, and two, it's going to be a lot easier to explain. What is inheritance? Typically, you have a character, so let's say this is your dad, and then you have a mother. Let's give the mother some hair so you know it's a woman. There we go, there's your mother, right? I'll call it mom. So you have two characters. Connect together in a way that I'm not explaining in this video, the birds and the bees, ladies and gentlemen, and that will make baby. I don't know how to draw a baby. There we go. There's a baby, look. Where? Yeah. There's your baby, yeah? You inherit things from your parents. Everybody does. Unless you're an orphan, then you inherit from the birth parents. But still. So for example, your mother might have a mole on the side of her cheek. You may inherit that mole on the side of your cheek. Your dad might have a very, very long leg. You very well could inherit that long leg, obviously, probably when you're older. There's loads of things you can inherit. Typically, it goes for the nose shape. So we'll give me a little crooked nose and we'll give you a little crooked nose. Or your eyes might be big and bulgy like your mother's. So we're giving big bulgy eyes, look. But you might have your dad's eye colour, say green or something. These are properties you inherit from your parents. And this will happen for generations. So you'll have the baby dad and mum, and then your dad would have come from some people with long hair, and he would have inherited their properties. You'll have your mum will inherit from their properties, and this will go on and on and on and on, all the way up the chain of you inheriting things throughout life, essentially. Everything you inherit. And eventually, when baby grows up to a adult, they will find their own mate. They will have a baby, which will inherit the properties of these two as well. This can go for anything. Nose shapes, eye shapes, diseases, attributes, hobbies, anything like that you can inherit quite easily. You'll see the same thing in animals as well. So if you have a dog, how on earth do I draw a dog? I don't know, ears. Looks more like a horse. There's my dog. You have a dog. Let's label it. That's a dog. And if you get another dog, which I will draw there's the female dog with a curly tail. There's another dog. If you get these two to breed, you will get a litter of dogs, I don't know what they're called, which will have the properties of them. So if this one's got spotty thing, like a Dalmatian, some of these will have spotty ones. And 9 times out of 10, you can look at one and you know that one exists from the other. And they'll have properties, behaviours, stuff like that leads them to inherit from them. They're also deeper than that. They are the same species. They have the same organs, mostly. And, the same thing. So if they have 4 legs, the offspring will have 4 legs, roughly. If you have 2 arms, they'll have 2 arms. And this is exactly how it works in programming as well. You inherit the properties from your parent. So if in programming, we create a class or an object called character. I can't write while trying to think about it. That says character. And they have properties or variables that define it. So a name, which is a string. They might have a speed, which is an int. They may, in Unreal's terms, even have components. So the movement component, which is a type of, funnily enough, movement component. So they will have their own properties on the character here. And character is one of the most universal Unreal classes you can have, a character. And you inherit from this. You don't inherit from two in Unreal's terms. You inherit from this, and you will have your base character. And by default, you will have access to all of these variables for you to use, and then you tend to add your own on. So you will say, I want a damage, which is an integer. And then that forms your base character. From here, it's common practice to again inherit from it, just like the parent structure. So your grandparents to your parents to you to your child. We have the base character. Above this, I believe it's a U object, and then above that it's got something, but it eventually boils down to binary because that's how computers work. But we have the character and we inherit from it to create the base character, and you very well may inherit from this to form the NPC, which will probably have all their stats up there, but it'll also have their AI, so their state tree. It might have their faction. But the difference between coding and reality is we can also change everything up the tree. So we can essentially time travel, give our grandfather a trait, and everyone downstream will accept that. So at the moment, our NPC has a name, a speed, a movement component, and a damage, right? But we can come up here and we can say the character's also got a boolean called flight. I'm just going to do a YM for boolean, which now they've got a new property. Everything when you compile it, the base character now has the flight property. The NPC now has the flight property. So we have advantages with it being, not real, to be able to do stuff like that. And you can chain this on as long as you absolutely need to in order to make your game. In a nutshell, that is inheritance. It is having a base class and saying, hey, I am a child of this base class. So some other terms you may hear is things like, what are you a child of? In that case, this base character is a child of character. Or you may hear, what's your parent class? Well, that's the character. Other terms is, does this base class have any children? In which case we just look down the chain and say, hey, yes, the character is a base character of it. You absolutely don't need to inherit it. If this character is completely fine for your game, go for it. Put your character in. But they will never have the damage integer. So if you give this guy a gun, there we go, choo choo, he will never be able to damage people because he hasn't got a damage integer, which would be a great time for us to move him to a base character so he has the damage integer. But then he can't ever shoot anybody unless he's a player. So you might move him to the NPC. And you can also move classes just like this. If you move them to a completely different class, you may lose things. And what I mean by that is, at the moment, we've just been going one directional, character to base character, and you've gone to NPC. But the NPC might have two child classes. So this way, he may have the boss. And the boss is pretty much the exact same, except he's got, he's got a states array, so he can do different things, right? But then you may have another child of NPC called Peter for some reason. And Peter just has dialogue. So there's Peter, look. You could inherit one person from boss, and that'll be your character. That'll be the boss guy. But he will never have dialogue. You could grab him and move him across to dialogue, but then he'll lose the states. So in that case, you need to start thinking of how you want to do it. In some programming languages, you can multi-inherit. Like you would with a parent, you could say he's a type of boss state and Peter dialogue. In Unreal Blueprints, you can't. You have to chain them in the correct line like that. It is possible to do it in C++, but you don't typically do it, from what I've seen. Let me know if you do multi-inherit in C++. But you can absolutely change a character's parent if you need to. And for any of you who need to know how to share these, just make a separate class that does it. So if the boss needs the dialogue, join them together. Create one class. And if it's never going to be that common for them to have it, then just create a separate one where Peter specifically has states or dialogue. So how do we actually go about using this in Unreal then? So I can put the tablet down now because my fingers are hurting. Let's jump into Unreal. I have my Unreal project here, right? So I'm just going to come and create a test folder where we can do all of our work in here. So if we right click and choose Blueprint Class, we will see a list of all the parent classes we want to inherit from. That's what we're doing. We're creating an actor based on a parent. So we were just talking about the character, right? So we'll select the character and we'll call this BP base character, because that's what we said in the chain. And when we open it up, we have everything that we've inherited from the character. So character is a class that's built into Unreal. And we can see that class has a capture component, an arrow component, a mesh, a character movement component, and a butt ton of variables. Because that's what it is, it's a helper class to get you started. There's no name, so let's give it a name. So we will add a variable to this base character name, and we'll set it to a type of string. So we now have our base character, and he's got a variable of string. We can come and make a child of this by right-clicking and choosing Create Child Blueprint Class, or we can do the exact same thing we've just done, right-click, Blueprint Class, and we can search for our base character, and you'll see BP base character. Unreal's very nice because it even shows you the parenthood of that class. So our BP base character inherits from character, which inherits from pawn, which inherits from actor, and then object. You obviously don't need to know that, it's just common knowledge and it's good to know. But we can come and select base character and we will say, hey, we are a type of base character, but we are an NPC specifically. So we can open it up. And you'll see it looks exactly like a character. But at the top right, we can see we're inheriting from base character. If you click class defaults, you can see all the same variables, but what you will notice is you have your parent's character name from the base character, so we can set that to something. So we can come in here and we can say, hey, this NPC has a state tree that they're going to run, and we'll set it to a type of state tree. So they have inherited the properties of their parent, so they have the name, all the character details, but they also have a new variable of a state tree themselves, which means we can again come and right click, create child class, and we will do NPC underscore boss, and we'll open it up. Again, exact same thing, all the same from the character. We've got the name from the base character. We've got the state tree from the NPC. And we're inheriting all of these properties. You'll notice we can't create a variable on the child and access it from the parent. So on base character, I don't have a state tree because it doesn't go up the chain. You don't inherit things and give them to your parents. You accept everything you're given pretty much. If you need the parents to have access to it, you would move your variable up the tree. So for example, if I wanted my base character to have a state tree, I would remove it from the NPC and add it to the base character instead. And that is inheritance. In Unreal, you can change it. So if you go to class settings, say on the boss, and say, hey, he's no longer a parent class of NPC, let's make him just a base character. He's not an NPC for some reason. So you can click it, it'll say, you're about to lose some data potentially, because if we've set the state tree from the NPC and we reparent it, it's not going to have the state tree variable anymore. So you need to really understand what this action is doing. If you have anything on the NPC you want to keep, you can't do this. But in this case, we want to lose the state tree. We're okay with that. So we will reparent it. And you'll see, if we go back to class defaults, we just have the name the state tree has gone because we have moved up the tree. So in here, we were a child of NPC, but we have got rid of that link and we have instead just moved it back to base character. And that's pretty much it. That is inheritance. It's one of them words that is just used because it means all of this data. Because if you had to explain to somebody, where does this speed variable come from on the NPC? Well, the base character's got it, and the base character is linked to the character, and then the character's got it. You could say it comes from the character. There's a lot of more words in, whereas you can just say, oh, it's inherited from a parent, or it's inherited from the character. Then everybody knows what you mean. It means the character has that variable defined, thus you now have it because you are a child of it. It links it all in together. You can also do this in C++. So one thing I like about Unreal is it tells you the C++ that you're currently using. So on my base character, you can see it's inheriting from a character, which is an Unreal class. If I select this, it will open in Rider and show me the actual Unreal code for it. So this character here, if I come and search for a known variable, such as the movement component, you can see here my A character, my class of character, inherits from a pawn, because that's what we saw earlier, and we've got the movement component right here. And that's a variable defined on that character. Now, in a previous tutorial, we went through setting up the gameplay ability system on Game Animation Sample plugin to give you access to the GASP system. I've unfortunately since lost that code and I need to redo it, which is really annoying. However, we can see it right here. If we have a class of character and we want to create an inheritance, or say, here is your parent, you simply do colon and then put your new parent onto it. A common thing I see is people are using multiple plugins. They may have Narrative Pro, and Narrative Pro has its own character, which inherits from character, which inherits from pawn, whatever. But then they have another plugin. For example, the latest one I've been helping is a user who's got a driving plugin, and the driving plugin's all set up with their own character. So how do you link it together? Well, let's document this. So you have the base Unreal character. That belongs in Unreal. In this user I was helping, they are using Narrative Pro, which has their own character, inherited from character. And then it's got a blueprint example of a character so you can edit it on the front end. They have another character from a driving system, which has it's all set up, it's got all the keys and everything fine. It's going to be difficult to move everything over. You could, of course, take all of the code that drives this character and move it into one of these. Absolutely. But then if this ever gets an update, then you've got to redo all this logic again. It's just painful to do, really. So there is an easier way where you can almost reparent and intercept this into something. So since you know this drives from character, and this drives from character, these two both have the same variables as this character, but they've just got their own defined. So what we advised the user to do was to actually just add in their driving one in the middle of it. Reparent one of them. So what they did was exactly this. They reparented their Narrative Pro character to the driving character, which was part of the character. And then everything just synced up nicely. There may be some data loss minorly, so the pop-up on Unreal that said, reparenting you may lose data. If this Narrative Pro character has set the base speed to 5,000, but then this driving script sets the base speed to 10,000, that's going to override it. So we're hoping that the Narrative Pro character's setting has managed to keep it when you reparented it, because sometimes you can lose it. Equally, it can go the other way with defaults. One child's default is whatever the character's default is, but the parent changes the default, you may have to reset it on your own character. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is inheritance. It's one of those big words that sound really complicated, but it's not. It's super, super simple once you know it. So when you ask for help, or next time you see somebody say something like, hey, I've got this NPC, I want to add more variables to it, but I don't want every NPC to have it, how can I do it? You can be the one to say, just make a child of it. Make a child of NPC and add your variables to it. So I'll make a child of my NPC, and I'll say, this is the NPC for Peter, and I can add Peter's dialogue. And because I've made a child of it, the NPC doesn't have dialogue, and the boss doesn't have dialogue either, because he is not the same child as Peter. There is inheritance. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think. Did this help you understand what inheritance actually meant? Have I missed anything I should have covered? Let me know below. There are plenty of terminology we can use in programming that just shortens it up. It abbreviates long, complicated topics, makes it easier to speak. You know the whole thing, when you know the lingo, you can spew it out and everybody understands. For beginners, you may not understand it, and it sounds really complicated. Event-driven programming, object-oriented, scope design, all this other stuff. We can cover this off and make it super easy to understand. None of it's particularly difficult. It's just one word for a large sentence. That's really it. And inheritance, there we go, covered. So it's super easy. I hope this helped. If you've got anything you'd like to add to this, please let me know below. Thank you for watching. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.